Thank you for joining us for our continued programming as part of our FSEA online learning experience. My name is Jeff Peterson, the Executive Director of FSEA. Our next presentation is Sustainability Meets Print Decorating. Our main speaker today is Calvin Frost with Channeled Resources. Calvin is the chairman of Channeled Resources and has been a global spokesman on sustainability in the pressure-sensitive industry for 30 years, focusing on non-landfill applications. FSEA has recently partnered with Calvin and Channel Resources to create an opportunity for our members to have an outlet for the disposal of their foil waste and work towards eliminating the need of landfill disposal. In addition to Calvin's discussion, I will also discuss briefly our current sustainability study and some new activities we have with a new study we're doing through Georgia Tech. So without further ado, I would like to introduce to you Calvin Frost.
Hey, Jeff, I'm delighted to be with you today. It's really exciting to partner with FSEA. We've had some limited success, and I hope with this few-minute presentation that maybe we'll stir up some additional interest. I will say this as an aside. We have a meeting next Wednesday with one of your members in Indianapolis, and I'm very excited that that was just confirmed this morning. Delighted to actually stop in and see if we can create a dynamic diversion of non-recyclable material from the landfill. Just a few comments about Channeled Resources and why we are where we are today. We started as a traditional recycler, really actually in the mid-70s. And then by the mid-80s, we had changed the focus on our business to the recycling of non-recyclables. And we define non-recyclables as any material that is coated, treated, laminated, paper, or film. And certainly the materials that are generated by FSEA members would fall into this genre of material. Today, Channeled Resources has 6 divisions. We are a silicone coater, a commercial silicone coater. We put silicone on paper and film for release applications. We are a converter of pressure-sensitive roll label stock. We manufacture blank labels. This is a different technology. We're using hot melt adhesive and UV silicones. We are a converter of unsupported papers and films. We manufacture pressure-sensitive tape, and we also work with several of the major adhesive manufacturers. These are global companies, by the way, and handle what we call B-grade hot melt adhesives. So I think we can go on to that next slide if we could. What we found in our business as we developed these relationships with major suppliers was that they wanted a commitment that even if we couldn't process or resell the stuff we were bringing in, that we would not landfill. And this actually goes back to the 80s when we first made this change from recyclable to non-recyclable. So if you bring in, and by the way, we're talking 300, 400 trucks a month. And each truck has at least 15 to, let's say, 18, upwards of 20 tons. So you can play with the arithmetic. That's a lot of stuff. We have only 2 facilities. We had 3. We shut it down. But if you figure that 10% of that is non-recyclable, that's a lot of non-recyclable material. And enter the relationships that have become contractual. And what our partners were saying to us is, we do not want you to landfill. Well, what do you do with 500 to 700 tons a month of non-recyclables? And as we worked through this, we found that energy was the best application. You can't landfill. So what do you do with all this stuff? You can't send it to India and Sri Lanka and other third world countries. They won't take this stuff. We can't sell it domestically here in the US. What do you do with it? The best application that we have found over the years is energy. And I will say this, we have partnered with many, many different companies, but our latest relationship, which now is going on to in our 13th year, is with Convergent Energy. And I think some of you have heard my partner, Ted Ted Hansen, speak. He has been to at least one or two FSEA meetings. He has a very nice story to tell. And it's basically a cost-effective solution to landfilling. And you can see those little bullet points there. I'm not going to read those to you. I'm assuming that FSEA will pass these slides on to you if you want them. So I won't read all of them, but basically Convergent has a excellent, cost-neutral, sustainable solution that any converter or supplier for that matter can look at. They're in Green Bay, Wisconsin. And by the way, we are now processing 7,000 tons a month of these non-recyclable substrates, working with a variety of people just like you that want to be sustainable. So let's go on to the next slide if we would, if we could please. This is something that I'm sure is of interest to you. What are the materials that we can and cannot take? In this slide, you can see that apropos to your business, we're taking in the left-hand column film, foil, polylaminated. These are flexible packaging materials. We're taking tons and tons of that material. And then over on the right-hand side, you'll see, if you scroll down, you'll see towards the bottom, metallized polyester. So we are doing business with companies like Kerr's. We are doing business with companies like ITW. We have a very small volume coming in from FSEA members, but we have the ability to take more if we can find the right partners. And by the way, we go out and we help you package and put together these materials for shipments to Convergent. Actually, this is interesting. Just the other day, we were working with a company you may know. They had just started up a metallized line, Colbert Packaging. They're in Lake Forest, Illinois. And they are shipping, they want to be sustainable. They don't want a landfill. They are shipping, I would say, 5,000 pounds every 6 weeks up to Convergent Energy. And I only mention them, they're not an FSCA member, but they are working with the same kind of substrates. They do not want a landfill, and they are shipping less than truckload quantities. Well, let's go on to that next slide if we could, Jeff. And this is just a quick list of the materials that we really can't take. Obviously, heavy metals, food waste, we do not want anything organic. And really the most critical item over here is on the right-hand column, anything that is chlorinated, such as PVC, polyvinyl chloride, such as salt, anything that has high volumes, contents of chlorine is unacceptable. Also, as noted, you do have to send a sample, and the sample consists of materials in an envelope. It could be 3 or 4 8.5 by 11 sheets of this material, just to make sure that we're not getting into something that's going to cause a problem at the plant. So let's go to the next slide. And this is pretty neat. These are some pictures of non-recyclable materials. You can see bales. You can see some Gaylord. You can see rolls. We have roll cutters up there. You can see any kind of variety of material, label matrix, non-wovens, flexible film, and so on. Those are just some good photos of materials that are consumed every single day, 24/7 at Convergent Energy. Let's do the next slide. Good shot of the 2 facilities that they have. On the top right hand, that's a picture of the Green Bay facility. You'll notice all those trailers. Most of our supplies are coming in full 20-ton loads. the trailers are dropped. If it's less than 20 tons, you need to schedule an appointment because we will live unload, but we have to have an appointment so we can get your truck scheduled in there. Otherwise, the trailer's dropped and they will unload 24/7 as they process through these trailers. The fuel, and I haven't shown you a picture yet, but you'll see that in a minute, is a pelletized fuel pellet. So it's been compressed and extruded in an extruder, and that's manufactured in Green Bay. And then the neat thing that Convergent has done is they bought a commercial boiler. It's a very large property in Lance, Michigan. And so that commercial boiler consumes the pellets that are made in Green Bay. So manufactured in Green Bay, pellets made, shipped to Lance, and then the energy that's generated in the boiler is sold to the grid. That energy, by the way, is defined as renewable energy. So if you really want to be sustainable and you really want to close the grid, you can generate non-recyclables, send it to Green Bay, process into a fuel, fuel goes to Lance, energy generated in the boiler is sold to the grid, and you can buy the energy back again. It's such a neat story. Let's go to the next slide if we could. And that's what I've just been describing, which is a circular economy. And again, you can see waste in the foreground there. Those are bales, of course. Up here, you see finished pellets being loaded into a trailer, and then the pellets shipped up to the boiler, and the energy that's made in the boiler, and then of course the energy is bought by the manufacturing company, and we make more product, which generates more waste, and so on and so forth. It's a really neat story because what Convergent has done is they've closed the loop and made it possible for you to actually participate in a program that will make you more sustainable. Now let's go to the next slide. And this is another duplication of the other one. Again, closing the loop. Very few companies have the ability to present this story. We'll go to the next slide if we could. I stuck this slide in here because it really demonstrates the cost situation. We are bringing stuff in from the East Coast and the West Coast. And here's an example. And again, I want to just preface this by saying the unit measurement we use is 20 tons in a truckload. So everything here is based on a unit measurement of 20 tons. And I know a lot of you don't have 20 tons, but we need to look at this thing in 20-ton increments. So let's look at Southern California, and this happens to be San Diego. The cost to landfill and transport it to the landfill is about almost $250 a ton. So your total cost based on 20 tons is about $5,000. If you send it to Convergent, your freight cost is $3,600. And then with a tip fee that Convergent charges, which just so you all know, we're totally transparent with this. We charge $30 a ton tip fee, plus you pay the freight. Your total cost with tip fee included and transportation is $4,400. So $4,900 minus $4,400, you're saving $560. And there's another example of the Twin Cities, Minneapolis, St. Paul, and again, the cost of landfilling, and then versus the cost of bringing it over to Green Bay. And then Chicago is another one. We have the same chart, by the way, from the East Coast. We know what the freight rates are from Massachusetts and New Jersey. I thought we had something going with New Jersey and with your group, and it just never matured. That was after your meeting last year in Atlanta, where we did get a bite. We were just unable to catch the fish. So again, this is a neat chart to just look at costs. And essentially, I can say that by going from a landfill to Convergent in Green Bay, looking at all costs, you are pretty much cost neutral and or can save some money. And again, everybody has an individual situation in terms of your space, the way you package or cannot package. It's kind of interesting going down to Indy next week to visit one of your members, and we happen to have a plant in Indy. And what we propose to this company is that they ship their material over to our place and we'll consolidate it with other stuff going to Green Bay. We only have 2 plants here in the US, one in Indy and one in Wisconsin. We can certainly utilize those if necessary to try and make these things work. Otherwise, you can ship LTL to Green Bay if you have an appointment. Let's go to the next slide, please. Just a kind of a quality slide to talk about some of the problems that we've run into. We have in the last 30 days received an engine block in a trailer. Thank God we caught it, but you can imagine, remember, we have 3 phases of shredders. These are very high tech, high torque shredders. They're very robust, but there's nothing we can do about an engine block or a steel bearing. Once it gets in there, it destroys the shredder. And obviously we go down and it costs us a ton of money. And you know, we can't handle, again, any kind of food or organic material. Batteries, obviously, they're a no-no. And of course, I mentioned the chlorinated materials. We really have to be careful about chlorine. I honestly, knowing your industry reasonably well, I don't think you're involved with any kind of chlorinated film. But that's my history with you. Let's go to the next slide.
Calvin, real quick, you know, from talking about this, you know, the shipping of the materials. If one of our FSCA members or others that are on this, you know, on this webinar, is there a minimum amount of waste that, you know, that Convergence accepts? In other words, do they have to have so much to be able to ship it up to them?
It's a good question, Jeff. I honestly think it doesn't make good economic sense unless you have a minimum of 5,000 pounds, 2.5 tons. Now, we have, I mean, to be fair, we do have some small suppliers that happen to be in Wisconsin, northern Illinois, and they really don't want a landfill. They've made commitments. They want to be sustainable. And so they are shipping 2,500 pounds. The cost, though, to do that is obviously more expensive. But we are getting small quantities like 2,500 pounds. I think anything less than that just isn't practical to either them or to Convergent, to be honest.
Do you find, Calvin, that, again, looking at some of these case studies here, is the landfill costs, are they fairly comparable through the U.S., or do they differ quite largely from California to Texas, or how do you see that in the, you know, in the overall view?
Landfills are, when we look at the landfill costs, they are broken into regions, and there are about 8 or 10 regions. I honestly can't remember, but California is a region. The Massachusetts, Connecticut area is a region. That whole East Coast area is a region. The tip fee rates, and by the way, tip fee is a term used just for the dumping charge. That does not include the environmental tax. It does not include the trucking cost to get it to the landfill. It does not include any rental that the generator, you know, the FSCA member may be charged for renting equipment to put his waste into it. So you've got to be careful. But we know that these are published numbers, by the way. You can get these online. The costs of landfilling in Massachusetts, for example, are now up to $150 a ton. California is probably, in fact, I know this for a fact because we're dealing with a company up in the wine country, in Napa. It's a very large label printer for the wine industry. His tip fee is over $200 a ton. That's just the tip fee rate, and they've been told that that rate will increase over the next 3 years, and it'll increase every single year for the next 3 years. Jeff, we are also, without a doubt, if we just throw all the landfills into a great big pot, we have been told, and the numbers, are there for everybody to look at, we have about 7 years left of landfill space. Now, I don't mean to sidetrack our presentation, but here's what happens. So if we take Appleton has, I think, about another 5 or 6 years left of landfill. What will happen is a major hauling company will go to the city council in Appleton and say, look, we've run out of landfill space. We need permits to put in another landfill. If you don't do it, we're going to have to haul it to ABC County, which is way over there, and we're going to have to charge you another $50 a ton. So what they do is they get a permit based on additional costs. We are saying that the known landfills that we have in America will be depleted in another 7 years. That's an average, by the way. And so it's a very complicated subject. I could go on and on for this one, with this subject for quite a long time.
No, I think that's really good information. Thanks. To the next slide.
Just a couple of more slides. This is back to the circular economy. I'm sure that when you talk about sustainability within your organization, that this term is being used more and more. And if you look at the brand owner, the brand owner is concerned about where does your byproduct go, the byproduct you're generating in your operation. If you look at P&G, Walmart, Unilever, these big distributors, they now have scorecards, and they are, maybe they're not dealing with FSE members, but they're dealing with others that buy from FSE members. And everything is trickled down. Everybody wants to know where your byproduct is going, and that's going to become more and more of an issue. Circular economy is here to stay. It is not going to stop. And we honestly believe that, putting your material with a company like Convergent Energy is an absolutely approved application for non-recyclables. We are, by the way, we're not defined as renewable by the EPA in those 3 states, Wisconsin, Michigan, and Ohio. So it's a wonderful solution. And I think there's just one more slide. And this basically is how to start. And you can start by calling us, Channel Resources. There's an 800 number someplace. There it is. And we will give you, a bunch of information. We'll try and help you with information on packaging, information on cost, form of material. And then again, to qualify acceptance, that material, we have to send a small sample, as I mentioned earlier, up to Convergent. Our role is really to be a facilitator. We are in a development phase where we go out and develop feedstocks for Convergent. Once we have the process set up, we move on. We connect you directly with the people at Convergent. We don't need to be involved unless a problem develops. Our role is to develop these feedstocks. I will say one more thing. We are looking at a second facility. That's about all I can tell you. But the business now is very robust. The fact that Convergent has a guaranteed outlet for their product, their pellets, has allowed them to become much more aggressive in terms of marketing their product and in terms of helping us to develop feedstocks for them. We know we're going to be here tomorrow. We're not going to get turned off like a light switch. And that's happened in the past, to be honest. But that is not going to happen again. So,
Calvin, real quick, so when you said you're looking at a second facility, would that be a second facility that would actually manufacture the pellets?
yes.
Okay, in a different part of potentially in a different region of the U.S.
Yes.
You would include that. Okay.
Yes. Yes.
Very interesting. Yes. That is a question I had too. I would think, I think as the sustainability isn't going anywhere, and certainly has kind of raised its head again. I think, even more of a resurgence in recent months. And the cost of landfill going up, that this, is going to be more and more of a situation that our members need to look at, and everybody in this type of industry needs to look at. So, is there going to be, will conversion be in a situation where they can't handle all of the material that may be coming into them?
I don't think so. I don't think so. Here's an interesting part about this. So I'm pretty active in Europe. In Europe, they have legislated that metallized polyester in an operation like your members have would be considered packaging waste. It is illegal to landfill packaging waste in now 6 of the 28 EU members. That eventually is going to spread across the entire European Union. We know that. So it's illegal. If you throw away any of this stuff, if it goes to a landfill, you are going to pay through the nose. I am not advocating that we have the same legislation in America. But what seems to happen in Europe eventually comes over here, because we're working with global companies. We're working with international companies. And, it's just like their chemical certification process. What we do in Europe, we're now doing in America. We have to change what we're doing. We cannot continue to take this stuff to the landfill. It doesn't work. So I honestly think I'd rather be ahead of the curve than behind the curve. And I think the time is to get on the train now and not wait until you're going to be forced to do it. That's my view.
I think that's a great view, Calvin. And I really appreciate you sharing this with us. One of the things we did as an association several years ago was put together a study with a third party on the reusability and recyclability of foil decorated paper and board. So once that the board is foiled and hot stamped or cold foil, that we did testing on the recyclability of it, or can it be repulped, because there was a lot of questions coming up with that. And one of the things that people were getting, our process, meaning the transfer of foil, was being mixed in with the foil laminated board or foil laminated paper, and there's a big difference there. So we do have a study available on that. Anybody that's on the webinar that would like to get a copy of that, or even a PDF, they can email me at jeff@fsca.com. In addition, this is a few years old now. We have just recently partnered with Georgia Tech, their technical institute there, that works a lot with paper and repulpability of paper, and they have done a new study for us that actually just verifies what we did a few years ago. People have asked for something more current. So we're putting that together now. That'll be available fairly, very soon. So we have some really good information about the recyclability, repulpability of the foil product or the foil board or paper, And then, of course, the second step is really what we're partnering with Calvin on, that to be able to take that foil waste and eliminate that foil waste going to the landfill, and then make that something that our FSCA members can do. Calvin, I've said this to some of our members that maybe right now it's not always feasible to send all your foil waste to conversion, but you may come up against a really big potential customer that you can tell them that you have the ability, that may be extremely sustainable, and they want to make sure there isn't any waste in the landfill, that you can have that ability to make sure that doesn't happen, even if it's specifically their job or their pieces, that none of the waste will go in the landfill, and you'd have that ability to use you guys in conversion for that. So I think that's something for those who are listening in to keep in mind, and as you said, get ahead of the game of talking to you and potentially working through the ability to eliminate that foil waste in the landfill.
Jeff, you reminded me that there are more ways to skin a cat than you can imagine. We've been doing business, and I think actually you may have introduced me to one of your members that has a plant in Kansas. And this introduction took place a year and a half or so ago. And we are moving anywhere from 2 to 4 trucks a week from this location in Kansas to Green Bay, Wisconsin. It's 650 miles. And this company is totally committed, it's your member, totally committed to being landfill free. And so they made a commitment, and we worked with them. We came up with a special package, financial package. We have an extremely aggressive freight rate. So these things can occur, is all I'm saying. Conversion and channel resources together can put packages together that make that are not only sustainable but make financial sense, whether it's Kansas or New Jersey. And I just say that because that was, again, I think it was your introduction that started that relationship, and it's matured, and it's been going on now for a good year and a half. And so there are all kinds of possibilities. I just think sustainability has to become part of your vocabulary. Too often it's put over on the side. I've got to worry about my machines, my presses. And so what happens to byproduct is it gets put into the back burner and it goes to landfill. And that has to change. Sustainability needs to become, closing the loop needs to become a priority.
I think that's great information, Calvin. Well, before we go, I do want to shout out a thank you to all of our sponsors for our online learning experience. Without them, we would not be able to put this all together and make it available to all of you out there. Our sponsors this year for the learning experience is BOPS, Duplo, Kerr's Transfer Products, HHS Bomber, H&M, Infinity Foils, Metal Magic, Mueller Prost, Sakurai USA, Eagle Systems, Univaco Foils, and Universal Engraving. Thank you again. And Calvin, thank you very much for taking the time to talk with us.
Thanks so much, Jeff, and good luck. And let me know if I can help in any way.
Will do. Thanks.
Cheers. Bye-bye.